Okay, hello, Merry Christmas to all my viewers. And in this video, I wanted to have a little bit of fun because Man United have been crap lately, and Ruben Amorim, he hasn't seemed to have improved a lot, especially after that Bournemouth drubbing. So in this video, I wanted to go back to times when things were good. Time when the world just seemed a simpler place, when Manchester United could actually win a game and put together a string of wins and potentially challenge for the title. And in this video, I would like to outline what I feel is the greatest Manchester United team of all time as I see it. And hopefully this stimulates a little bit of debate. This stimulates the comment section, and it inspires you guys to tell me what your best 11 is for Manchester United. And I just want to preface this a little bit because I've been a Manchester United fan for 30 odd years now. The first match I ever watched was in 1993 when we beat Manchester City 3-2 at Main Road, where Roy Keane scored the winning goal on about the 80th minute or something like that. We were 2-0 down from two Niall Quinn goals, and Eric Cantona pulled a couple back, and then Roy Keane, the new signing of that season, got the winning goal from midfield. And that was in 1993, so that's what, 30... Wow, that's 31 years. Oh, where's that time gone? Anyway, so I've been a Manchester United fan for that long, and I'm also a match day going fan as well. I go to Old Trafford on a semi-regular basis as well, and I sit in the Alex Ferguson stand mainly, sometimes in the Stretford end as well. Just depend on what tickets are available. So it's been part of my family for that long, and I come from a Manchester United family as well. My dad supported them, my granddad supported them, my mum supports them. We are a United family. So the rules for my 11 are: I'm going to pick players that I have watched since I supported them in 1993. So I'm not going to be picking any players from before 1993 that I haven't watched. So that means I'm not going to include George Best, I'm not going to include Sir Bobby Charlton or Duncan Edwards or all of those greats of the club. I'm just going to pick players from 1993 onwards. And also, I'm also going to pick a team that is tactically astute. Okay? So I'm not just going to shoe on all my favourite players in there. I'm probably going to omit certain players who I loved, who were some of my favourite players, because they don't fit what I am trying to achieve tactically with this starting 11. But anyway, I'm going to get right into it, and I'm going to start with the formation. And I quite like the 4-3-3 formation. I quite like the 3-4-3 formation that Ruben Amorim's playing as well. But for the benefits of this great team that I'm going to pick, I'm going to go with 4-4-2. But this particular 4-4-2, based on the players that I'm going to pick, it can morph into 4-3-3, tactically speaking, if it was required in some alternate universe where all these players play together. Okay? So let's start with the goalkeeper. So we could pick one of three. And it could be David De Gea, it could be Edward van der Sar, and it could be Peter Schmeichel. I love David De Gea. I really do. He should still be at Manchester United to this day. He's tearing it up in Italy for Fiorentina now, and I think I heard somewhere that he's won Player of the Month or something like that recently. And the way he was treated by Manchester United, particularly Erik ten Hag and Murtaugh, was horrific for a club legend, and he is a club legend. And I think if Manchester United became successful again and he was the goalkeeper for that team, then I pretty much think he would could be number one in this selection, but unfortunately he left, and so he's not going to get picked on this one. Edwin van der Sar was a phenomenal goalkeeper. To think we got him when he was like 34, and we got him for 2 million, and he played until he was like 41, and he won everything. That is just insane. And he won multiple league titles, he won the Champions League, and he saved the winning penalty in the penalty shootout in the 2008 Champions League final against Chelsea. He would have been a good shout too, but alas, I am going with Peter Schmeichel because he was an absolute colossus. It was like having a Viking in the nets, literally. The Danish international was an ironclad contender for one of the greatest goalkeepers, not just of Manchester United, but of all time. He won everything as a player, at club level anyway. He captained us in the Champions League final in that great 1999 team, in the absence of the suspended Roy Keane. And he also won the European Championship with Denmark, of all teams. I mean, that's just insane. And a little bit of trivia I read somewhere once. He's the only goalkeeper to have ever saved a penalty from both Jurgen Klinsmann and the great Marco van Basten. So that alone is just an incredible feat. So I'm going to go with Peter Schmeichel, the Great Dane. Back four. Okay, so we need a right back, left back, and two centre backs. Right back, Gary Neville. Who else could it be? Gary Neville has to be the most underrated right back in Premier League history, or most underrated player in Premier League history. If Gary Neville played today in his prime, he would easily be 60 million. Easily. If Aaron Wan-Bissaka cost 50 million, I mean, Gary Neville's, well, if Aaron Wan-Bissaka was 50, I mean, Gary Neville's 70 million. I mean, he was solid in defence, and he was dangerous going forward as well, and he could deliver a ball. He was fantastic. And if you remember in Euro 96, when he was like 20 and he was playing for England, he had an incredible assist for Alan Shearer in that Scotland game. He crossed in a phenomenal ball for Alan Shearer to head home, but he's forgotten that because that was the same match that Gaza did the old dentist chair, and he scored that amazing goal as well. So it's a little bit overshadowed for that. But the fact that he can play as well on a stage like the European Championships is just a testament to how good he was. And he was incredibly consistent as well. And he was a leader. And he was a captain of the club too. So Gary Neville in at right back, number one. Just no other contenders, unfortunately, for anyone else there. Two centre-backs. Okay, now we've got a lot of centre-backs to choose from in this video. I mean, we could pick Rio Ferdinand. We could pick Nemanja Vidic. We could pick Bruce. We could pick Pallister. We could pick Ronnie Johnson. I mean, you know, he was really good, Ronnie Johnson. He was unassuming, he was solid, great with the ball at his feet, he could play midfield as well. His career was sort of marked by injuries a little bit, but I mean, he still won everything at club level with Man United. So, I mean, he was a good player. There's Jaap Stam too. Yeah, we've had quite a few good defenders over the years. As much as I like Harry Maguire, and Harry Maguire isn't a good in this, unfortunately for Harry. But yeah, the first choice at centre-back is going to be Rio Ferdinand, because I think Rio Ferdinand was probably the best central defender of his generation, rivaled only by probably Alessandro Nesta, because Alessandro Nesta not only won the Champions League, but he also won the World Cup with Italy as well, and he won multiple Serie A titles. He was just a phenomenal defender, but Rio Ferdinand was just as good, and Rio Ferdinand would have got in that Italian team alongside Nesta and or Cannavaro quite easily. And Rio Ferdinand also captained United at times as well. He lifted the Champions League as captain along with Ryan Giggs in 2008 when we won the Champions League, and he won multiple titles. And I mean, there was a point in time where Rio Ferdinand was so good, he would consider it a bad performance if we walked into the dressing room with dirty shorts, because if he couldn't anticipate the play and run faster than the opposing striker and just nick the ball off them without sliding, then it was a bad game for him. So Rio Ferdinand is the number one centre-back in my 11. Now, his partner, well, I mean, I'm not going to pick who you might think I might pick. I'm not going to pick Nemanja Vidic. I love Nemanja Vidic. I thought he was a brilliant player. He was a colossus in defence with Rio Ferdinand. They formed an unbeatable partnership. And, Ferdinand, Vidic and Edwin van der Sar still have the record of the most minutes in world football without conceding a goal. And it's like 1,000 minutes. And this was in like 2009 or something like that. They went about 1,000 minutes without conceding a goal, which is still a record to this day, if I'm not mistaken. You might want to check that, but I'm confident that that is correct. So no, despite that, I'm not going with Nemanja Vidic, but I am going with Jaap Stam. Jaap Stam was a world record buy for Manchester United at the time. I think he cost about 10 million or something like that, 10.75 mil, something like that. And he went on to win everything with Man United at club level too. And what I feel as though Jaap Stam had on Vidic was he was just a bigger lad. And I think he was actually harder than Nemanja Vidic. He was faster too. And also, Jaap Stam was... Well, people forget how good he was with the ball at his feet. I remember, watching instances where he would take players on and he'd skin them. He'd just take the ball past them and just skin them. He was almost like a combination of Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic in one. And he was hard as nails and he just got stuck in. And people almost forget that, his defensive partner, Ronnie Johnsen, in that United team of 1999, because Jaap Stam was so good. So Jaap Stam and Rio Ferdinand in defence, central defence, that defence is just not conceding goals. Just isn't. At left back, well, it's a choice between two players, really. It's a choice between Patrice Evra and Dennis Irwin. Loved Patrice. He was a brilliant competitor, great going forward, great in defence. However, Dennis Irwin gets the nod for me. Dennis Irwin at left back. That's because Dennis Irwin was just as good in defence. He was just as good going forward. He was incredibly consistent. But also, Dennis Irwin was two-footed and he assisted quite a lot. And he actually scored goals. And he was an incredible free kick taker as well. So for the goal threat and the fact that he played for so long, he played up until he was about 37 or 38 for Man United. He was brilliant. And Alex Ferguson, I think even to this day, says that he's the most consistent player that he's had in his team. And on average, in like a 300-year career for Man United, that's how long he played for us, he averaged like a 7 out of 10 in all games, minimum. He was just so good. Even Roy Keane loves him. But yeah, so just to recap, the defence, we're going to go with Peter Schmeichel in goal. Right back, Gary Neville. Two centre-backs are Rio Ferdinand and Jaap Stam. And at left back, I'm going with Dennis Irwin. That defence is not conceding goals. It's just not. I don't care who's playing for the opposite side in attack. That team is not conceding goals. And that's my defence. Okay, so we're going 4-4-2. So 4-4-2 on right midfield. Yes, you guessed it, David Beckham. A lot's made of players like Kevin De Bruyne, right? But you just look at the stats. David Beckham rivals Kevin De Bruyne, if not betters him, in assists, goals. I'm not sure about goals, actually. I'll have to double check that. But the assists alone were just incredible. Plus, Bex was a big game player as well. The attackers like Andy Cole, Dwight York, they just knew where that ball was going. They knew that they could count on David Beckham to whip a ball in. His set pieces were incredible as well. He could score a goal under the most intense pressure. Just remember his goal against Greece for England when he was captain. Yeah, he was captain of England as well. He was just an absolute legend of the sport. And people forget how good he was because he's almost overshadowed by the fame and the circus that surrounds him. For you wrestling fans who might like my channel, he's almost like the Triple H of Manchester United. His incredible talent was overshadowed by who he married. And she was incredibly famous. You can understand why that might have overshadowed football at the time. But David Beckham, oh, mate, we could do with David Beckham in that side today. David Beckham was world class, and that's that. 2 central midfielders. Well, I'm going to go with Paul Scholes, because we need someone in there that's going to dictate play. He was, an incredible creative player. He just knew how to run games, and a lot's been said of Paul Scholes, and it's all true. And if Xavi, Iniesta, and Lionel Messi, and all those guys from that great Barcelona side of 2009 to 2011, if they all kind of worshipped him in La Masia, and they saw him as the standard, I mean, that's good enough for me. So Paul Scholes is going in there. Alongside him, well, it's the greatest captain and most entertaining commentator of all time, Roy Keane. Roy Keane was, people remember him as being this absolute thug of a hard man, but people forget how good a footballer he was. He'd done the basics better than anyone else. He was an incredible tackler. He could break up play, and he was an incredible passer as well. Where Paul Scholes specialised in sort of being a dictator, so to speak, in midfield, Roy Keane wasn't far behind him in the passing stakes. He really wasn't. You go back and watch a highlight reel of Roy Keane, and he was incredible with his passing movement. And earlier on in his career, he had a goal in him too, because his engine was just insane. Box to box. He puts midfielders to shame even today. And plus, he will be the captain of this great side that I'm picking today as well. So Roy Keane, just for the fact that he was incredible as a defensive midfielder and he could help Paul Scholes dictate play, I'm going to go with Roy Keane. So he's my shout alongside Paul Scholes and David Beckham. Now, left wing. This is where it gets tactically interesting. I'm not going with Ryan Giggs. Ryan Giggs is an absolute legend of Manchester United, fantastic player, and take nothing away from him as a footballer. He was brilliant. But I need to find a place for Ronaldo. I'm not putting Ronaldo up front because I've got 2 players who I prefer up front, but I'm going to go with Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, this is where, as I say, this is where it gets interesting tactically. So, Cristiano Ronaldo on the left. So that midfield can just shuffle along a little bit, and it can easily turn into a 4-3-3 if Ronaldo moves further forward and he joins the other 2 attackers as an inside forward. And that's quite easily a 4-3-3. David Beckham can play in central midfield too. Roy Keane could anchor with Scholes and Beckham just sort of pivoting off Roy Keane with the front 3, one of which being Cristiano Ronaldo. What more do I need to say about Cristiano Ronaldo? He won the Ballon d'Or with Manchester United, one of only 4 players to have ever won the Ballon d'Or for Manchester United. The other 3 being Dennis Law, nearly said Dennis Irwin there, although he might as well have done. He was a better player than Michael Owen. Dennis Law won the Ballon d'Or, 64 I believe. Sir Bobby Charlton won the Ballon d'Or in 66 after he won the World Cup with England, and the great George Best won the Ballon d'Or after their 1968 European Cup win against Benfica. And then Ronaldo was the 4th in 2008 when he scored 42 goals from midfield. So Cristiano Ronaldo, because he scored more goals than Ryan Giggs. He can play up front as well. And it's Cristiano Ronaldo, probably the 2nd best player of all time. I cannot not have him in my greatest United side. Which leaves the front 2. We've had some incredible attackers over the years, incredible centre forwards. We've had Van Nistelrooy, we've had Wayne Rooney, we've had York, we've had Cole, and Dwight York. Dwight York is so underrated. People forget how good he was in 1999. He scored about 30 goals, got a bunch of assists as well. He was a big game player. He scored goals away in the Champions League. He was the joint top goal scorer in the Champions League in the treble-winning year. And Shevchenko was the other goal scorer in that year. But people forget that. People talk about Michael Owen. Michael Owen didn't have a season as good as Dwight York in 1999. Thierry Henry. And they talk about him being amazing in 2006 or whenever it was when he had a great year. But Dwight York scored just as many goals and he won a treble. Thierry Henry didn't do that for Arsenal. He did it with Barcelona, but Lionel Messi was the start of that team, not Thierry Henry, you know. So Dwight York was a phenomenal player, and we've had Van Persie as well. But I'm going to go with Wayne Rooney. Definitely going to go with Wayne Rooney. I mean, just for his work ethic alone, he was an absolute pit bull up front. And he could drop in at number 10 as well. So United could quite easily go to a 4-5-1 quite easily with Wayne Rooney in that side. Plus, he could also play as a number 9 as well. And you could argue he had his best season for Man United at number 9 in 2010 when he scored, I think he scored about 42 goals or something that season. And he, I think he had about 35 by February or something. Then he got injured. But Wayne Rooney, I would also argue that Wayne Rooney was probably the third best player of his generation, third only behind Messi and Ronaldo. Wayne Rooney was incredible. The all-time top scorer for Manchester United. He was for a brief moment England's all-time top scorer. Won everything with Manchester United. Broke all the records. And also, I mean, an 18-year-old Wayne Rooney dominated Euro 2004 as well against legends like Zidane and Thuram and Desai and all those guys. So Wayne Rooney has to go in there. His strike partner up front is going to be none other than Ruud van Nistelrooy. Tra-la-la-la-la. That guy was a machine. A machine. Roy Keane used to say when he saw Ruud van Nistelrooy go through on goal, he'd just turn around and go back to his own half, because he knew it was going in and they were going to start again from kick-off. So that's how much faith Roy Keane had in him, and we know what Roy Keane's like for criticising players, and he didn't have any criticism for Ruud van Nistelrooy, and I'm not surprised, because Ruud was an absolute assassin. I mean, he could score from all angles. He could score with his head, right foot, left foot. I mean, I remember that goal against Fulham when he ran the halfway line, skinned about 4 players. He was incredible, and this was after a cruciate ligament injury as well. So, yeah, Ruud van Nistelrooy. And yeah, as I say, we could quite easily go into a 4-3-3 there. We could go into a 4. So we'd Ronaldo, Van Nistelrooy and Rooney. Rooney can support the other two. I mean, he could drop deep and he could go into almost like a diamond as well. With Keane, Scholes, Beckham and Rooney in the number 10, with Ronaldo and Van Nistelrooy up front together. I mean, that's just lethal. But yeah, that's my team. And just to recap, the starting 11 in a 4-4-2, Peter Schmeichel in goal, Gary Neville at right back, Dennis Irwin at left back, 2 centre-backs, Jaap Stam and Rio Ferdinand. Right midfield, David Beckham. Left midfield, Cristiano Ronaldo. Paul Scholes, Roy Keane, the 2 central midfielders. And up front, we've got Wayne Rooney and Ruud van Nistelrooy. That is my ultimate Manchester United team. The greatest 11, based on the period of time I have supported the club. But if you've come this far, you're clearly interested in what I've got to say, you like my content, and because of that, I am keen to hear what you've got to say. What do you think of my team? Is it any good? Have I missed someone out? Have I been harsh with some players? Should I have put Vidic in there? Should I have picked Edward van der Sar? What about Giggsy? Should Giggsy have been in there and Ronaldo went up front? You tell me. Tell me what your greatest United 11 is, and I will read it and I will comment on your comments as well. But thanks for watching.